Hi, everyone. So as Bob said, I'm Alan Levine. I'm the senior counsel at Cooley, and I'm privileged to be executive vice president of this organization. And I just want to join Bob in thanking and really thanking all of the judges in the state that have come here tonight to be with us, to be part of this event, and thank you all for what you do to promote the rule of law and to keep everybody safe. So thank you all. So we're the only thing holding you up for dinner. And I really work for Judge Lippman. I'm his executive vice president. He told me to keep this short. Of course, that's very easy for me. I'm very comfortable in that skin. And we thought from the first department and the fourth department, we would talk about a couple of things that you don't normally hear about. We're not getting into the nuts and bolts of how both courts work, but we're going to talk about some things before we have dinner. And the first thing that I would just like to ask each of them about, since I think you'll see the practices are a little different, since COVID, when everybody was arguing cases by Zoom, I'm just wondering how each of the departments are handling that, and whether you've gone to eliminating that or adopting it. So, Justice Whalen, what are you doing in Buffalo?
As far as, did you say as far as COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kind of, as far as we've adopted, mechanisms to be in place in case it comes back, if that's the question. And I think we're all much better prepared than we were at first. But one of the things, though, that if I could just take a minute before I get into talking about that, I want to say thank you to this wonderful historic society of the courts. This is truly an honor to be here with my fellow PJs. The idea that we're being honored, strikes me. If you know the appellate work that we do it, kind of facelessly. If you're a trial judge, you're in the paper sometimes. You get these cases that are newsworthy. But in the appellate courts, you're somewhat, part of a panel, and the panel reports, and the panel decided. And so recognition is not one of the things we do often. And so I want to, thank you for recognizing the work of the Appellate Division. And, we're here for a very brief period of time, right, on the Appellate Division. You think of hundreds of years of common law developed in the state of New York, which we all should be very proud of, the work that the judges have done in the past leading up to today and into the future, no doubt. And the judges that sit on these courts sit for a relatively small period of time and have a relatively modest impact, but it doesn't mean it's not without real meaning what we do. And we work hard to do it well. And we know that at the end of the day, our job is to honor the judges that went before us and to guide and hopefully lead by example the judges that will come after us. And so to be recognized, and I take this recognition as a recognition of our court and our courts, I want to thank you for recognizing the justices of the Appellate Division, because we do appreciate it. We don't look for the recognition, but when it happens, we really do truly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I concur.
We're done now.
Oh, there you go. I told you to I warned you about that.
I believed it.
So, but one of the things that Ellen and Judge Renwick and I discussed talking about was civic engagement, and how the fourth department, kind of explain what we do in terms of civic engagement. And one of the really great things that's happened within the last so many years was this whole idea of live streaming arguments. And as you might have expected, that when the idea first came up in the fourth department, it did not, it wasn't greeted with unanimous approval. Everybody was a little nervous about it. They were nervous about themselves and how they might appear. They were nervous about some colleagues that they thought might be showboating on the court. They worried about things that might be said and maybe you'd be stilted in your questioning. There were a lot of concerns, and I think some very legitimate. What's happened, though, is, I'll only speak to the fourth department, is you forget that the cameras are there, which is wonderful, because you're just doing the job that you've been used to doing. And what it's done is it's now, I was a practicing lawyer for 21 years before, I did trial work before I took the bench. And the idea that clients who are paying for their lawyers, or even if the lawyers have been appointed, are relying on their lawyers to argue the case. In the fourth department, it's 22 counties of western and part of central New York. It's the biggest geographic area in the state for appellate court. You could travel from various points in our district 2.5 hours to get from your home to Rochester, which is where we sit, and 2.5 hours back. So people aren't showing up, clients aren't showing up to hear arguments. Before live streaming, they were getting reports from their lawyer as to what happened. Now they're seeing government in action. They're seeing the judges who hear their case, who ask questions, who know the record. I think it's a wonderful thing for reaffirming the legitimacy of the court, which we always need, and overall for reaffirming the legitimacy of government. And so it's been a wonderful thing for clients that way. Secondly, students. We've engaged students in the fourth department, and we brought them into the courtroom. We brought them in, we've given them sometimes breakfast, sometimes lunch, depending. They hear the arguments, they talk with the staff about their jobs, high school, college, law students, and they are seeing live the argument, then they go and watch, they tell us, they report that they watch the arguments then afterwards to see it, because they're now talking about the cases. They're engaged, right? And now they're interested in the law and they're interested in what the court does. This is all a good thing. And the public generally, we all know, and I'll wrap up, Alan, I promise you. We all know that we have very high-profile cases. Well, if that high-profile case is 2.5 hours away, then the people are not going to drive to Rochester to hear the argument in the Appellate Division. But if they can stream it, they're engaged. They see what we're doing. They can pay attention. They know what the questions are. And interestingly, as we all know as lawyers and judges, there's always another side of the argument that they're not always aware of. But when they hear the other side, when they hear the questioning, they get, I think, what the issues are. And it helps them understand that. And that is a revelation sometimes for people, because they think they know going in, I'm right, this is my position. But now they've been exposed to the argument of an appellate court and wonderful lawyers who appear before us. It's terrific. So I think the streaming has really engaged the public, the students, clients, in the engagement in the court, and that civic engagement through live streaming has been fabulous. Alan?
And what about arguments? Are they all in person, or are they sometimes on Zoom?
The fourth department, now I won't speak to the other departments, but the fourth department, we ran a pilot program because as soon as we were in COVID, and we just kept hearing cases, and I know the other departments did also, there's a priority to not close the store, right? Keep the cases moving, keep the arguments going. And so what we did is we went to virtual. And necessity is the mother of invention. Our IT department, our senior staffs, they got up and running. They set up instantly, it seemed, the ability for lawyers to appear virtually, and we began doing that. That has been fabulous. Again, concerned by the court, what's going to happen if people aren't coming and arguing live? Well, what's happened is about over 40% of the cases are still argued live. And I knew, and I told my colleagues, I said, look, if you've got an opponent arguing live, you're going to go argue live, right? Some lawyers want to do that. That's fabulous. If your opponent's arguing virtually, you might be more comfortable arguing virtually. At the end of the day, the lawyers are finding what works, and here's what's great about this. The travel in this big geographic area, door to door, charging a client, the cost is reduced dramatically for clients on appeals, and we all know how expensive appeals have gotten. So this is one part of the appeal that becomes less expensive if you have the option to appear virtually and you're not living near Rochester, New York. So I think that that's been a real wonderful thing. It saves clients money and it allows the lawyers to appear virtually. Yep.
So I know that you've been live streaming in the First Department now for a number of years. What do you do about remote arguments?
So I will first say that I agree with much of what Jerry has just said here. We started in around 2019, and there was some resistance for all the reasons that have been said. Somebody going to take those clips and use it against you. Somebody going to take some time when you might not look so good, you didn't say something that was perfect, and use that. All of those things are still very possible. And with our arguments, we have found, because we have some important cases, some cases that get a lot of media attention, and stations have called us and asked us if they can show now these things are live streamed, right? We have our own live stream and it's on YouTube, but they call and ask, well, can we show it on the program? And it says, please don't, take this and show it. And of course we say, well, no, we prefer if you didn't. And there it is, you watch the news and there it is live streamed. So will it always be used in the way you hope it will be used? No. And are there circumstances in the Fourth Department that make it even, more of a necessity? The distance, yes. I don't know about the 2.5 hours, because I could go from the top of the Bronx 20 miles down to Battery, and it has taken me 3 hours. So, but, and we have, great public transportation. So I think it's great that we are in person. We all have, your firms and everything are really close to the court, easy access to get there. So I think it's very important that we are there in person, because we can be. But it has been, I think, very good, even for, those who resisted. We are definitely, we were able to get up to speed so quickly during COVID. I mean, who knew, any of us, that this was going to happen, and that's the way we would have to use it. But it was seamless in the way we were able to, and anyone who here, did anybody argue during COVID at the First Department, virtually? I mean, it really was seamless in the way we were able to do it. So glad for that. And since then, we, with a letter to the PJ or the JP, who's ever in the center, a request for, if one wants to be virtual, for example, if there's an ADA issue, or someone is ill, something contagious, we say, go ahead, we'd prefer. Or if, someone can't make it to come, for example, you're stuck in Buffalo, there's that lake effect, blizzard, and you can't get down to the First Department to argue a case, something like that. Obviously, it's granted, but usually it's by request, but there are no special rules.
So, Justice Whalen, you talked about civic engagement, and it brings up a really important subject, which will take a couple of minutes to talk about before dinner, and that is, next week is Law Day. We all celebrate the rule of law on Law Day. I've been thinking that every year we say this year it's really important to celebrate the rule of law. So I'm going to say this year it's really important to celebrate the rule of law. And the Historical Society, you all should know, dedicates a lot of its work and the proceeds of tonight's dinner to developing curriculum in legal issues and law-related education materials that we distribute around the state, K through 12, and run teaching institutes for teachers. So I wanted to step out of the cases that you handle. Like, what are you doing in the Fourth Department, and then Justice Renwick in the First Department? What are you doing to, like, teach the rule of law beyond the lawyers that appear before you?
Well, you know, we give you an example of something we do in terms of community outreach and to, as the Chief Judge has said, you know, education in the law is really important. We need to make sure that we assist in that in any way we can. And I was in my chambers in Rochester during one of our terms a couple of years ago, and Stephen Lindley, my colleague on the court, who's a wonderful judge, came in and said, "I've got an idea." He said, "I was a moot court judge, and I looked at the lineup of all the schools that were competing in the moot court in the Rochester area, and they were all private Catholic high schools." And he said there wasn't a public school listed in the competition. He said, "What I'd like to do is I'd like to engage the court lawyers and see if we can get the ear of the principals of the public schools, high schools, and go out, meet with the students, and encourage them to engage in the moot court competition." This project took on a life of its own. It became, and it is now, in the high schools. There were too many high schools, by the way. We didn't have enough staff, and we had 10, 11, 12 attorneys and other staff that were engaged in the coaching of these moot courts teams. And so there was a lot of hours spent doing this, and the staff loved the engagement. Steve was incredibly instrumental in organizing all this. There was television coverage of it because it had not been done in decades in the area. People were donating money for clothing so that everybody got a new suit, a new business suit, so that they could go to the moot court competition and look the part of a lawyer. All of this was coming together. The first year that we did this, the teams came to our court for the Fourth Department for a practice run before they went into the moot court competition. And then they performed. They did really well, but they didn't succeed in their initial arguments. But as you might expect, there were seniors and then juniors, sophomores. Now there's a flood of students that want to be engaged in this. The second year in this competition, we had teams succeeding in their arguments and advancing through the competition and almost getting to the quarterfinals for the state championship. So we're very optimistic that next year the teams are going to do even better. But that's the kind of engagement that I think gets the court member, the attorneys, judges in the community, teaching them about trials, teaching them about law, and the interest that they've taken from that. They're coming back to us saying that they want to go to college, they want to go to law school. This has really become a focus of their lives. So.
That's wonderful. That's the kind of thing that we hope is going on all around the state. So, Justice Renwick, what's going on in the First Department?
In the First Department for Law Day, well, I am really passionate about civics, and I think that Law Day is a wonderful opportunity to engage young students from 6th grade to 12th grade, and create an understanding about what the judiciary does and its relationship with the legislative and executive branches. I just think it's a really wonderful opportunity for us to teach civics, because maybe it's because I've raised 3 children, but the idea that all of a sudden a child's going to come at 18 and know what they're supposed to, that they're supposed to vote and serve on the jury, it just doesn't work that way unless it's really something that they are raised to appreciate. And I guess I'm a bit of a nerd because I was a Girl Scout, so I really did go from the Brownies, all the way through. And my kids are Eagle Scouts, and so, you learn about volunteering, you learn about being an engaged community member, you learn about teaching, kids who are younger than you, tutoring them, not necessarily for money, because it's the right thing to do. You learn about that each person makes a community, that you have to work together to really build community. And so I love bringing the students in. I talked to Judge Katzman, who was in the, obviously, Second Circuit. He's passed now, but way back, and full disclosure, I am a member of the board of the Historical Society of the New York Courts. So I've been hearing and being a part of these programs that develop these educational units and everything else for the courts. And I couldn't wait to be able to work on something and make something happen like that. So we have a committee in our court in the First Department called the Foundations of Justice. And we have 2 initiatives, but the one that deals with civic education is called the Justice Forward Initiative, which I would say is sort of the umbrella for all educational programs. And so this is the 2nd year that we've really fully done it, and we will be having kids from underserved areas, from the Bronx and Manhattan. We're doing high schools for now. So we have a few from the Bronx and a few from Manhattan, over 100 kids, maybe about 120. And they'll come to us for the day, for the morning really, and we talk about careers in the courts. We talk about the 3 branches of government, give them a little civics. We talk about how they can be engaged citizens, how they should petition their representatives and know who they are. We talk to them about who their representatives are. And we talk to them about the judiciary and our role, what the trial courts do, what our appellate court does. We show them an argument, and then, of course, let them be the judge on how they would have decided the particular argument. And we also have an art component of the morning for children who may not want to take part in the other aspects of it, because everyone has different skills, so there is an art component of it also. And the kids are really, it's all about getting them engaged and letting them understand that this is something that develops. And next year, we hope to make it a monthly program. So this is just our Law Day program. That's one day. And we hope to go into schools, as I said, this would be from 6th grade to 12th grade, monthly. Either we do it that the child comes to, because obviously we're downtown, so I don't want to, it's very difficult for kids who are going to be in the Bronx, whatever area it is. So we would go to the school. We would also have the school. So 1 month we go to the school, 1 month the kids come to us, another month we do it virtually. So that's another opportunity.
I was an Eagle Scout, so now I know I respect you so much. But the community can also get engaged in civics through art, and there's a program at the First Department which is very near and dear to a lot of us on the Historical Society, so I'm just wondering if before we start dinner you'd tell everybody about that.
So, okay, so as I said, we have the Justice Forward Initiative, takes care of the educational aspects, and then we have the Representation of Justice Initiative, which focuses on the art and architecture of the first department. So I'm going to ask again, by a show of hands, how many people have been to the first department courthouse? Okay. So you know what it looks like. I mean, I think that it's one of a kind, but you'll understand why, you know, I feel like I am the keeper of this building. I am the protector of this building, that it is so important to preserve this beautiful building. I'll just give you a little history. Forgive me, bear with me. But the building was built in 4 years, between 1896 and 1900. So during that period, and by the way, they spared no expense, although it was $700,000, a little less. I think it came in around $633,000 for the building, and a third of that was dedicated to the art and architecture. There were 16 sculptors and 10 painters. And when I say painters, I don't mean somebody who paints the wall. I mean portrait artists. And if you've been to the court, then you know what I mean. And just so that you get a sense of the quality of these people, the lead sculptor was Daniel Chester French, who sculpted the Lincoln in the Lincoln Memorial. And I could go on and tell you about the architect, but I'll skip that. But anybody who wants to know, you can come to me afterwards, since I know the time here. But so it was really, I mean, when you see this building and you understand what it was, you know, what they put into it, how long it took to build it, how careful they were, what care they took for this, you sort of want to continue that history and that legacy. In 1894, when the court was created at the Constitutional Convention, at that time, it was about 24 years after black men had received the right to vote. It would still be 26 years before women got that same right. And you can tell when you look at the building that was the way it was built. In fact, in 1900, when the building was open, obviously the reporters were there, and in a New York Times article, the reporter wrote, "There were women in the audience." I could almost hear it whispered. It was written, but there were women in the audience. So there you go. So when you look at this building and you look inside, there are figures of women, but they're all allegorical figures. In the roof of the building, there are all philosophers, all male philosophers and male lawgivers. When you're inside the building itself, within the courtroom, there's only one person of color, and that's the Native American who was in the seal of Manhattan, so that's why he's there. You can take a look when you are there. So we thought that it should be more reflective, this beautiful building that was built at a time when people who looked like me, I hate to say that statement, but it's true, were not considered, were not conceived in the building of this. So we thought it was about time that we made it more reflective of the people who the court serves now. We were very lucky, and also because of the Historical Society of the New York Courts, we were put in touch with one person who led to another person who led to our neighbor, who is the Madison Square Park Conservancy. Anybody know that? If you ever go to Madison Square Park, you probably have, if you go there frequently, you see beautiful art there over the years. Well, it's Madison Square Park Conservancy. And in collaboration with them, we found an artist. They brought us the artist, obviously, who was a MacArthur Genius Award recipient. So in keeping with the stature of the sculptors and artists who originally were involved in the creation of the building, and she created the figure of a woman. It's called Now. Any of you who have been to the building should look up and you will see the golden figure of a woman. So that is to represent the women who were sort of only represented in allegorical figures. Not that she's non-allegorical, but she stands out a little bit more. And we have also, in that same vein, we have this, this beautiful dome. It was done by Maitland Armstrong, who was a contemporary of Tiffany. And it is really the crown jewel in this, in this crown, this beautiful court. And all of the names around the dome, there are two tiers. You'll see upper names and then there are lower names. The lower ones are all of the presiding justices, former presiding justices. And the ones above, we're really not sure how they've come to be there, what decisions were made in selecting names for that. But again, they are lawyers, and famous legislators who are there. And we thought that it was time to put someone who, again, was not reflected before. And so we installed the name of Constance Baker Motley, who was so important in opening doors for everyone to go to college, but particularly in the South, blacks in the South, in cases like Meredith versus the University of Mississippi. And so we removed a name, but replaced it in our library. No one is taken off and discarded. We put the name in our library, again in the same stained glass. And we removed the name of Roger Taney. And as many of you will remember, he wrote the Dred Scott decision. And so we thought it was appropriate to replace the name with Constance Baker Motley. And so those are the two things.
So just listening to both of you speak so lovingly of your courts and what you do, I think it's a really aspirational way to end the panel and enjoy dinner. And let's make a toast to Law Day and the rule of law. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.